My name is Malcolm Reeves, and today I'm going to share my story with you about how one ultrasound shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my family, and my future. I walked into the doctor's office expecting joy, expecting to see the child my wife and I had prayed for after years of heartbreak. But instead, the doctor's hands trembled as he pulled me aside and whispered words that tore my world in half. "You need to leave her, now." From that moment, nothing was the same. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. But before we begin, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your words give me the drive to bring these powerful true-style stories every single day. By the time I turned 39, I had turned Caldwell Builders into the top construction firm in Fairmont Ridge, with projects reaching across 3 states and more than 200 employees. My scarred hands carried the proof. I had climbed from a day laborer to a millionaire general builder. 12 years earlier, I had married Claire Wexler, the polished daughter of a former city councilman. Her family's wealth was long gone, but the name still carried weight. At 34, she remained admired for her ambition and presence. To outsiders, we were the picture of success, living in a large house on Willow Heights. Yet I felt the shift. Claire's warmth cooled, her absences grew, and her spending no longer matched any occasion. Our son, Noah Caldwell, then 14, was my anchor. Sharp in class and fierce on the soccer field, he shared my grit and his mother's cleverness. Weekends belonged to us. We built projects in the woodshop while she stayed distant. When Claire announced her pregnancy 5 months ago, it shocked us. After 13 years of marriage and repeated heartbreak, we thought Noah would be our only child. I was overjoyed, but her reaction seemed strained, almost reluctant. Dr. Leonard Marston, our family physician for more than a decade, oversaw her care. At his Marston Family Clinic, he checked every detail, aware of her age and medical history. Waiting for her appointment that day, I sensed something wasn't right. Even my co-founder Ryan Cooper noticed. He told me Claire often appeared in town with a concealing grin, glued to her phone. His wife Melissa had spotted her on Parkside Avenue, whispering with a man she didn't recognize, startled when confronted. I brushed it off at the time, but unease lingered. Claire returned from trips empty-handed, locked herself in rooms for hushed calls, and seemed detached from the coming baby. That morning she barely touched her breakfast, checking mirrors as if preparing for a role. When I suggested lunch after the appointment, she gave only a nod. My instincts screamed louder than ever. Something was unraveling. Inside Clinic Room 2B, Claire lay still as Dr. Marston slid cold gel across her stomach for the prenatal scan. She masked her panic, knowing this test could expose her secret. 8 months earlier, she had crossed paths with Victor Ramirez, a sleek developer from Capital City, a man of sharp suits and practiced charm. Unlike me, always dust-covered from sights, Victor dazzled her with talk of towers and international deals. Claire had long dreamed of escape. Victor offered flowers, messages, promises of a life beyond Fairmont Ridge. He rented a suite at the Crestline Suites, where they met twice weekly. The pregnancy wasn't planned. It was born in one reckless moment. And the timeline betrayed her. She had been with Victor 3 weeks before she last touched me. Dr. Marston studied the screen, his brow tightening as he measured. Claire couldn't see the monitor, but she read his face. "Everything all right?" she asked. Her voice cracked. He stayed quiet, calculating. The numbers didn't match her story. The baby's growth marked conception at 24 weeks, not 21. In his 40 years of practice, he had seen this look before. The worried wife on the table, the loyal husband outside, and the truth about tearing a family apart. Dr. Leonard Marston had broken bad news to many families, but never to people he'd known for decades. He understood the weight of what the prenatal scan had uncovered, truth that would tear lives apart. In the waiting room, Malcolm Reeves scrolled through work emails. Caldwell Builders was juggling its biggest contract yet, a luxury hotel project meant to crown them as the region's leading firm. He didn't realize the bitter irony. His wife had been sneaking away to the very kind of suites he was now building. His phone buzzed. Ryan Cooper had sent a message about a possible investor asking questions about the company, a man named Victor Ramirez. Malcolm filed it away for later, never imagining the connection. Meanwhile, his son Noah was at school, probably daydreaming about the sibling he couldn't wait to meet. He'd already painted cheerful murals on the nursery walls, oblivious to the storm ahead. Back in clinic room 2B, Dr. Marston laid down the probe and looked directly at Claire Wexler. "Mrs. Reeves, we need to talk about timing. Based on growth, conception happened about 24 weeks ago, not 21. Her stomach twisted. Those 3 weeks would ruin everything she had built over 13 years of marriage. She couldn't speak. "I need to bring in your husband," the doctor said gently. As he stepped out, Claire shut her eyes, bracing herself for the collapse of her world. Across town, Victor Ramirez was likely closing another real estate deal, unaware that his secret child was about to explode into daylight. Dr. Marston's hands shook slightly as he approached Malcolm. He had practiced medicine for 4 decades, but this hit close to home. Malcolm had even built the addition to his clinic years earlier. "Mr. Reeves, may I speak with you privately?" His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the gravity. In his office, he paced before finally speaking. "The scan shows a major discrepancy. Conception was around 24 weeks ago." Malcolm frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means the child could not have been conceived during the period you and Claire were together. You were in Seattle then, remember?" The blood drained from Malcolm's face. He remembered the long February nights on that project, phoning his wife daily, missing her warmth, never suspecting betrayal. "Are you certain?" he whispered. "I've checked more than once. There's no doubt." The puzzle pieces locked together, her emotional distance, the hidden calls, the strange behavior. He thought of Noah, likely solving algebra problems right now, unaware the sibling he was waiting for was not his father's child. "What do I do?" Malcolm muttered. "That's not for me to decide," Dr. Marston said. "But you need to protect yourself and Noah. You deserve better." When they returned, Claire was still on the table, staring at the ceiling, tears sliding down her face. She already knew. "Show me," Malcolm demanded. Reluctantly, the doctor turned the screen. The numbers were undeniable. The baby was healthy, but not his. Claire's lips trembled. "Malcolm, I can explain." "There's nothing left to say." His voice was chillingly steady, sharper than she had ever heard. He studied the scan one last time, then fixed his gaze on the woman who had dismantled his trust. "We're leaving now," he told her, "and once we're home, you'll tell me exactly who he is." Her skin went pale. "Please, Malcolm." He cut her off, turning to Dr. Marston. "Thank you for your honesty. Send me every record, the scan, the dates, the measurements, all of it." Without another word, he took Claire's hand, not with love, but with command, and led her out, the walls of their life already collapsing behind them. The numbers, the timeline. There was no escaping it. As Malcolm Reeves drove home from the clinic, silence pressed down inside the car. Claire sobbed quietly, but he kept his eyes locked on the road. His mind was no longer on betrayal. It was already calculating. Protect Noah. Protect everything he had built. And find the man who thought he could steal his family. That evening, Malcolm sat alone in his study, the awards on the walls now mocking him. Claire hid in the bedroom, pretending to have headaches, while Noah studied cheerfully, unaware his world had shifted forever. Malcolm opened his laptop. One search was all it took. Victor Ramirez, CEO of Horizon Real Estate Group. The photo of the smug, smiling developer told Malcolm everything. A man who played the family man in Capital City while tearing apart families in Fairmont Ridge. Married, children, wealth, and somewhere in between it all, his wife. For days, Malcolm lived 2 lives. Outwardly calm, telling friends Claire needed rest. But privately, he built his case. He hired Frank Dalton, an investigator who wasted no time. Within 3 days, the truth was on paper, Hotel meetings at the Crestline Suites, receipts paid from Malcolm's own accounts, and a plan for Claire to divorce him and run to Capital City with Ramirez. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft, plotted with cold precision. Noah painted cheerful murals in the nursery, blind to the truth. His innocence cut Malcolm to the bone, but also fueled his resolve. That boy deserved protection from the poison already inside this house. Claire carried on her act, speaking of colors for the nursery while slipping away for secret calls. But Malcolm no longer saw a wife. He saw an enemy. And enemies weren't confronted in Haste. They were dismantled. By the end of the week, his decision was set. He would not argue. He would not plead. He would build his revenge like he built everything else, with patience, precision, and unstoppable force. The hunt had begun, and Malcolm Reeves never missed his target. Within 2 weeks, his blueprint was ready, every detail measured, every angle covered. Horizon Real Estate was already shaky, drowning in debt and hiding violations. Malcolm now had the evidence to trigger a collapse. His first move would look harmless, but it would start a chain reaction designed not just to expose them, but to crush them. Malcolm Reeves set the next stage in motion. He reached out to Victor Ramirez, posing as a potential partner. With Caldwell Builders' reputation, Victor jumped at the chance. They arranged lunch at the Silver Creek Lodge, where Malcolm was a founding member. Victor arrived in a luxury car, wrapped in a designer suit worth more than most people's monthly salary. He extended a polished handshake. "I've heard great things about Caldwell Builders. Together, we could do something big." Malcolm noted the man's soft palm, hands that had never known work. Over lunch, Victor bragged about his developments, even boasting about cutting corners on regulations. He winked. "Environmental rules can be flexible if you know the right people." Malcolm nodded, secretly recording every word. By week's end, Victor had walked him through 3 projects. At each site, Malcolm documented hazards, illegal dumping, bribes, evidence sharp enough to slice through Ramirez's empire. Meanwhile, Claire Wexler unraveled. She skipped her latest appointment at the Marston family clinic, terrified by the timeline discrepancy. She even toyed with excuses, premature birth, false calculations, but the scan had sealed the truth. Her affair with Victor grew strained. Their once passionate meetings at the Crestline Suites now smothered in panic. Claire sensed Malcolm knew more than he showed, but Victor brushed off her fears, convinced her husband's trusting nature would shield them. Malcolm moved silently, protecting his future. With attorney Harold Stein, he restructured Caldwell Builders and secured assets, house, accounts, even Noah's college fund. Harold didn't pry, only offered strategies to shield everything from divorce fallout. Through it all, Noah remained a bright spot, still painting cartoon murals in the nursery. His innocent excitement strengthened Malcolm's resolve. His son would not pay for his mother's lies. On Thursday night, Frank Dalton delivered the final blow. Surveillance showed Victor preparing to abandon his wife, Julia Ramirez, within weeks. The plan was simple. Claire would file for divorce, claim half of Malcolm's fortune, and start anew in Capital City with Victor and the baby. Julia would be left shattered, just as Malcolm was meant to be. Reviewing the photographs of Claire and Victor entering the Crestline Suites, Malcolm smiled coldly. They think this is their future. They have no idea what's coming. As Claire slept beside him, Malcolm outlined the final stage. Phase 1, intelligence. Phase 2, evidence. Phase 3, destruction. By Monday, the war would begin. That Monday dawned unusually warm for November. To Malcolm, it felt like the universe was giving him a sign. At 7 a.m., with Claire still in bed and Noah getting ready for school, he picked up the phone. First call, the State Environmental Bureau. He reported Victor's sites, backing it with photos, recordings, and proof of safety violations. Second call, the Federal Tax Authority. Victor's bragged strategies were fraud. Malcolm had the receipts. Third call, Julia Ramirez. Mrs. Ramirez, my name is Mal. Colum Reeves. I have evidence your husband is living a double life. Could we meet? There was stunned silence. Then, what kind of evidence? They met later that morning at a cafe near her office. Malcolm laid out everything: photos, receipts, messages, even the scan proving Claire carried Victor's child. Julia Ramirez was sharp, steady even through heartbreak. The pain in her eyes was clear, but so was her resolve. She wasn't just devastated. She was ready to fight. Julia Ramirez studied the evidence carefully, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. "This is airtight," she said at last. "You've built a case that leaves them no escape." "That was my goal," Malcolm Reeves replied. "Victor planned to leave you for my wife. They thought they'd take half of everything I built to start their new life." Julia's expression hardened. "Not if I move first. I've been collecting my own records for months. With your proof, we can shut him down." Within the hour, they laid out a joint strategy. Julia would file for divorce that afternoon, seek full custody of the twins, and trigger a forensic review of Victor's finances. Her legal network would move swiftly and without mercy. At the same time, Claire Wexler sat in the waiting room at the Marston Family Clinic, summoned after skipping her last appointment. She fidgeted nervously, blind to the fact that her carefully planned escape was already caving in. By noon, Malcolm walked into his kitchen to find Claire chopping vegetables, forcing a smile. "How was your morning?" she asked, her voice dripping with forced cheerfulness. "Productive," he said, placing his briefcase on the counter. "We need to talk." Her hands froze. She had prayed she could keep the charade going until the baby arrived. But Malcolm pulled a binder of documents from his case and spread them across the table. Surveillance photos, hotel receipts, the prenatal scan, proof beyond denial. Claire's face was drained of color. "Malcolm, I can explain." "No, you can't. I know everything. About Victor, about the Crestline suites, about the baby that isn't mine, and about your plan to divorce me and move to Capital City with my money." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but Malcolm felt no sympathy. The woman before him was a stranger, one who had dismantled 13 years of marriage with cold precision. He pressed on, his voice steady. "While I was in Seattle building the biggest deal of my career, you were spending our money on hotels. You were plotting with him." She begged, "Please, it's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. And here's what you don't know. As of this morning, Victor Ramirez is under investigation. Environmental charges, tax fraud. His wife filed for divorce with all the evidence in hand. His empire is crumbling. He won't be saving you. He'll be lucky to stay out of prison." Right then, Claire's phone buzzed. A text from Victor lit the screen. "Emergency. Everything's falling apart." Malcolm watched her read it, saw the exact second she realized her future was gone. "Gather your stuff," he told her coldly. "You have until Noah comes home to leave. After that, lawyers handle everything." Her eyes widened. "What about the baby? What about us?" "That bond is broken," Malcolm said, his tone chillingly steady. "This isn't our family anymore. And that child isn't mine." As he turned toward his study to make more calls, Malcolm felt something he hadn't in months: peace. The trap was sprung. Justice was underway. Within a single day, the House of Lies collapsed faster than Malcolm expected. On Tuesday morning, federal agents raided Horizon Real Estate Group, seizing files, computers, and records tied to 3 years of environmental fraud. By noon, headlines blazed across Capital City. "Developer faces federal charges." That afternoon, Julia Ramirez Fay led for divorce, attaching Malcolm's evidence and her own. She requested emergency freezing of assets and exposed Victor's pattern of deceit to the court. Meanwhile, Claire checked into a hotel, frantically calling Victor as she watched their escape plan disintegrate. When he finally answered, his voice cracked with panic. "They've taken everything. Julia froze our accounts. My investors are gone. I don't know how it unraveled this fast." "Malcolm happened," Claire whispered bitterly. "He knew everything. He set us up." As she explained the prenatal scan and Malcolm's methodical moves, Victor realized the truth. The contractor he dismissed as harmless had dismantled them with the precision of a surgeon. "We'll figure something out," Victor stammered. "There's no we anymore," Claire said, her voice breaking. The walls of their double life had caved in, and neither had anywhere left to run. Victor, you're about to lose everything, and I'm carrying your child, Claire Wexler cried. He hung up. Left alone in a dim hotel room, Claire finally saw the truth. The man she had gambled her marriage on wasn't strong or reliable. He was weak, selfish, and ready to abandon her at the first sign of trouble. Where Malcolm Reeves had fought for family, Victor crumbled. By Wednesday, the collapse accelerated. The Federal Tax Authority launched a full audit into Horizon Real Estate Group with criminal charges looming. 3 investors backed out, and Victor's lawyer warned bankruptcy was unavoidable within 2 months. For Claire, the fallout was just as brutal. Her sister Diane refused her a place to stay, disgusted by her betrayal. Her parents, the once proud Wexlers, offered only cold disapproval. In Fairmont Ridge, Ryan Cooper quietly spread word of her affair, making sure every important ear heard the truth. By nightfall, the community's support belonged entirely to Malcolm. Contempt had belonged to Claire. That evening, Noah worked beside his father in the woodshop, dismantling the nursery he'd once built with joy. "Dad," he asked softly, "is Mom ever coming back?" "No," Malcolm answered with honesty. "But we'll be fine. We've always been a team." "I was excited to be a big brother," Noah whispered. Malcolm set down his tools, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. "You will be someday. None of this is your fault. You've done nothing wrong." Thursday brought the last nail in Victor's coffin. Frank Dalton delivered proof that Victor had embezzled company funds to fuel his affair. The hotel suites, the gifts, even Claire's shopping sprees. Federal investigators acted immediately. That evening, news cameras caught Victor being led from his office in handcuffs, his tailored suit traded for disgrace. Claire watched the broadcast from her hotel bed, one hand on her swelling belly, realizing she was now tethered to a criminal who had used her as a pawn. By Friday, exactly a week after Malcolm confronted her, the campaign was complete. Victor sat in federal custody, his company bankrupt, his assets frozen, his reputation destroyed. Claire was alone, pregnant, disowned, stripped of wealth by the prenuptial agreement she had ignored, and abandoned by the man she'd risked everything for. For Malcolm, the files on his desk were closed, his plan executed with precision. Justice was no longer abstract, it was reality. Those who betrayed him paid in full, while he and Noah stood ready to rebuild. Phase 3 was finished. Now comes Phase 4, building a new life. 3 months later, winter blanketed Fairmont Ridge, covering the town's whispers with fresh snow. The scandal that had consumed the fall was history, but its consequences remained carved into lives. Victor Ramirez wore prison orange, serving a 7-year sentence for embezzlement and environmental crimes. Once photographed in designer suits, he now looked aged and broken. Julia had taken the twins and most of his remaining assets, moving them far away to start anew. In December, Claire gave birth to a daughter, Lila. The delivery was harsh, and so was her reality. She now lived in a small apartment, working part-time at a grocery store, surviving on welfare and minimal support. The councilman's daughter, who had chased sophistication, now faced the poverty she once mocked. Her family spoke to her only cautiously, their name forever stained. Malcolm, by contrast, thrived. His divorce, finalized in January, left Claire with little, thanks to the airtight prenup and adultery clause. Caldwell Builders surged ahead with 2 new contracts, his reputation not tarnished but strengthened by the way he had endured betrayal with discipline and resolve. At night, in the quiet house on Willow Heights, he and Noah sat side by side, building new projects in the woodshop. For Malcolm, the ruins of deceit had become the foundation of something greater: truth, loyalty, and a future built without lies. From those quiet nights in the woodshop, Malcolm Reeves began rebuilding his life the same way he built his company, patiently and on solid ground. Clients admired not just his projects, but the dignity with which he had endured betrayal. Noah, though shaken at first, adapted with surprising maturity. His father taught him that betrayal was real, but it didn't mean every bond deserved mistrust. Their evenings in the workshop and weekends hiking Riverbend Hills made them inseparable. One Saturday, as they rebuilt the back deck, Noah asked softly, Dad, do you think you'll ever marry again? Malcolm paused mid-hammer. At 40, he felt older, wiser, but not bitter. Maybe someday, he said. But for now, you and I have enough. Ryan Cooper and his wife Melissa stood by them like family, their friendship now deeper too, and business. Even Dr. Leonard Marston, retired but still sharp, joined Malcolm for coffee at times. Truth hurts, the doctor reminded him, but lies destroy. Malcolm nodded, knowing those words had saved his life. By spring, Claire Wexler's reality had changed. Struggling as a single mother humbled her. When she crossed paths with Malcolm, anger was gone, replaced by regret in her eyes and pity in his. Eventually, Noah asked to meet his half-sister, and Malcolm allowed it under supervision. The boy was polite but guarded, loyal to his father, yet unwilling to punish a child for sins she never chose. As seasons passed, Fairmont Ridge carried the scandal like a cautionary tale. Victor Ramirez sat in federal prison, stripped of power, while Julia and her daughters thrived far from his shadow. Claire moved forward slowly, long shifts, small steps, raising little Lila on her own. At 16, Noah said it best. She made her choices. I can respect her effort, without forgetting what she put us through. And in those words, Malcolm saw the truth. Betrayal collapses, but truth, however brutal, cleanses. At Claire Wexler's graduation, Malcolm and Noah sat quietly in the back. When her eyes met theirs, she gave a faint nod. She understood. It wasn't reconciliation. It was closed. Meanwhile, Malcolm had begun opening his heart again. Over time, he grew close to Evelyn Ross, a widow who shared his values of honesty and resilience. Their bond grew slowly, built on patience and truth. Noah welcomed her presence, sensing she never tried to replace his mother, only to add warmth to their lives. Together, they became a quiet, balanced family. Caldwell Builders thrived, its reputation stronger than ever. For clients, Malcolm's name meant integrity. For his community, it meant strength through truth. By his side, Ryan Cooper became a partner, while Evelyn and Melissa forged a friendship that anchored the inner circle. 3 years after the ultrasound that shattered everything, Malcolm stood on his rebuilt deck at Willow Heights. Around him gathered those who mattered most, friends, family, and a son, preparing for his senior year. The evening sun dipped low over Fairmont Ridge, turning survival into celebration. Evelyn joined him at the railing. "Any regrets?" she asked. Malcolm looked across the yard where Noah coached Ryan's young son in soccer. He thought of the ruins, the betrayal, the scars, and then he smiled. "No regrets," he said softly. "Lessons. Every scar taught me what truth really means." That night, as laughter echoed across his home, Malcolm felt profound peace. Claire and Victor had paid for their choices, not through revenge, but through the natural weight of truth. His own life now stood on solid ground, trust proven, loyalty unshaken, justice served. In Fairmont Ridge, the Reeves story was no longer gossip. It had become a lesson. Betrayal may wound, but truth rebuilds. The ultrasound that once destroyed his world had, in the end, delivered freedom. Pain had been his teacher, but honesty was his reward. And that truth, though brutal, was worth every scar,